thank you so much for coming. Today we're going to be talking about leaning into connections and discomfort. I'm so glad we have such a great, lively group today. Just to introduce ourselves, my name is Tainan Nunes. So I pitched this idea and I had these amazing individuals that came and joined in on it. I am a stamp scholar from Elizabethtown College. And so this is a topic very near and dear to my heart. I've grown up since middle school, leaning into uncomfortable situations where I have purposefully failed. And I have used my relationships to help better myself and better other people's. And I just believe that these relationships and this discomfort is foundational to how we live our lives and how we grow as humans.
Love that. I'm Winslow. I'm a Park Scholar class of 2004. I'm from here in Raleigh. I'm really interested in this topic because I grew up as the daughter of, I had two moms, and we were in a blended family, and I'm the youngest of 5 stepsisters. So when you talk about relationships and that many women in one house, all of the ladies, and being the youngest, I often sort of watched a lot of mediation amongst all my sisters. And witnessed discomfort at times. So that was sort of a core part of my being. And then I took that family upbringing and went into the worlds of fashion and now tech in the corporate world. And I was lucky to be able to have some really great training around conscious leadership and leaning into these kind of topics. And when Tainan came to us with this, I definitely was interested. So that's why I'm here.
Hello everyone, my name is Jack Bolton. I'm a Park Scholar from the class of 2027. I think what really interests me about these two topics is how core they are to our human experience. We all experience discomfort at some point in our lives, one way or another, and I feel like a lot of times our relationships are what help us through that discomfort, and so that connection between them, I think, is really big for all of us, and something that I was really happy to join in on.
Yeah. Okay, so to get things started off, I'd like everyone to think of their happiest/proudest moments of their life. Just think back, reflect for a bit. What was that one specific instance that you can think of? Okay, so once you have that in mind, if everyone could just put their hands up real quick, and I'm going to say some prompts, and if the prompt applies to you, put your hand down. Okay, does that make sense?
So everyone has their hands up right now?
Yes, everyone hands up. So, put your hands down if your happiest/proudest moment involved another person. Okay. If it was new or uncomfortable, put it down. Or if it challenged you physically or emotionally or mentally. So I'd like everyone to look around the room and see that no one's hand is still up, right? So it kind of goes to show how these new and uncomfortable and relational experiences really tie into the fact that they build some of our happiest moments and can get us through some of the harder ones.
Yeah. And Tainan, I think that's a really interesting point, and how human connection is such a core part of our experience and our growth. And I would like to hear your thoughts about why that is.
Yeah. For me, there's a quote that I live by, which is a shared joy is a double joy, and a shared sorrow is a half sorrow. We are built on human connections, right? Like if we think back to when we started building civilizations, we had to trust in our community members, right? Like there's the whole theory of like we can't have, or we typically have around 150 connections at a time. And so that's how we have grown with our inventions, through sharing ideas, through collaboration, through trusting others. And so when we look at how we have grown as humans, it's kind of inherent in our nature that we need to trust each other outside of our family unit, because that's how we survive. Not everyone is perfect at everything, and thank God that we're not. So I think in short, that's kind of that. And then that question I have for you two is how do the relationships influence who we are and the choices that we make?
I think the people you're surrounded by when you're a young person growing up, it's through proximity, your family. Those are the people that that are going to help shape your personality. And the way you feel comfortable or not comfortable with your family is going to depend, a lot of your life is going to depend on that early time. And so you then go out into the world and make more connections with perfect strangers, and some you'll become closer to or not closer to. And those relationships could be a spark, sorry to have a plug, can be the catalyst to lead you down a new path in your life. You meet people that inspire you, you admire, and through that relationship, you might try on that part of yourself, like seeing what that other person's doing, you're like, I want to be like that. And being a parent now of a 12-year-old and being really conscious of the kind of relationships my son is making, I'm like, stick with those that are going to have a positive influence, because it's really going to make you who you are.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think we are who we surround ourselves with. The normal phrase is we are what we eat. And I had a turkey wrap for lunch, but so feeling it a little bit right now. But we are who we are surround ourselves with, and I think that's something that's like really special about the park community is we get to be surrounded by such ambitious and such inspirational people in the stamps community as well. And not to plug sPark, but yeah, I can feel it in this room and in all of the sessions that I've been in. It's been really incredible to see that.
Yeah, and you guys bring up a great point, which is like we kind of meet these people, and they were once formerly strangers. So I want to know, who is someone that you now know that you previously considered a stranger?
It's a good question.
And how did you meet?
I think for me, I think back to my time first coming to NC State, and that's coming to college is a big transition for everyone. I think for me, it was even more so because I'm so reliant on other people. I need help with basically everything in my day-to-day life, personal care, and before coming to college, that was always my parents helping me out. Shout out, Mom, she's singing. Once I came to college, I had to start relying on other people, recruiting other people, and the first person who helped me out, I have like night shifts for people who help me out at night, and the first person who helped me out first night of college, his name was Cameron Blanchard, and he actually just graduated this past May. But that was a hard relationship to start because we were still new and fresh and really anxiety driven. But we became really good friends. And when I studied abroad in London in the summer, a couple summers ago, he went along with me and we had a really great time. And so, yeah, those relationships are hard and scary to build, but once you have them, I think they're really powerful.
Yeah, I was lucky to make a really solid friendship with someone also at NC State early on. In my case, it was a friend in the design school. Well, they weren't yet a friend. There was this guy in the design school. He had a huge personality. He was very bold, had very strong opinions, and was very intimidating. And I was coming from high school, sort of like, I'm a good designer. I'm from design school. I feel confident in myself, and like I can stand up for what I think is good. And I go into my first critique, and there's this guy, and he just tears apart my work, and I'm like, oh, this guy, he had such good taste. I love what he does, and he doesn't love what I make. How can this be? And then I had literally I cried at the end of that critique. And anyone who knows people in design school, if you have any friends, that's a common occurrence. It's part of life in design school, not actual true cruelty. That same person, we would go to the same parties, and I was always very intimidated to actually get to know him. And once we started talking, we realized we had so much in common, had the same kind of wicked sense of humor under it all. And that's been 25 years, and I talk to him every day. He helps me pick out, if I need a special wallpaper selection, I can count on my friend Chris. But someone that I was so almost afraid of at a certain point is one of my closest creative collaborators, and I'm so grateful for that kind of challenging way we met.
Yeah. I also want to give a quick little shout out. So some people that after my first year of college, I took a leave of absence for a year. And then when I came back, the STAM scholars were hosting a dinner and everything, so I sat down. And then right next to me was my friend Elsa back there and Maddie. And she sat down and she's like, "Are you Tainan?" And I'm like, "Yes." And she's like, "I've heard so much about you from this other person." And then from there, our friendship has blossomed. I had no idea who Elsa was before. And we've goaled together. We have, laughed together. We've traveled to this together. And so it's just I've been very fortunate to get to know those people in the back and to be able to do these amazing experiences through their support as well. So, yeah.
So we've talked a little bit about that initial anxiety, that initial scary feeling of meeting someone new and interacting. Can you talk about how that connection with strangers helps us bridge the gap or bridge the divisions and reminds us of our shared humanity?
Yeah, I love that moment. I mean, as an extrovert, those of you who met me during the prior sessions, I love to meet people and make connections with people. I love making that moment where we can, especially if we have something in common, where it's obvious we have something in common, it's free and easy kind of communication at that point. What's interesting is when there is that division, when you do meet someone, and it happens a lot, this is a time of a lot of social upheaval, and getting to know people can be sort of it can be a little tricky at times. But no matter who you meet or what you think may or may not be what the belief systems are that maybe you don't share, being able to always be seeking that feeling of what is a common value that we align on. Even in moments of conflict, really sensing, by the way this person is talking, this perfect stranger, I'm listening to them and what seems to matter to them, what motivates the way they talk and the things they're saying, and asking myself, how do I align with that value? Because when we align with our values, that's aligning with our highest self, instead of aligning on I completely disagree with this person on XYZ reason. We can still find a way to communicate above that discord by focusing on that common value. So I think that's the way I try to bridge divisions. Speaking of shared humanity though, sometimes when you're reaching out with strangers, maybe not on a one-on-one sense, but you're doing a volunteer exercise. Doing the Park program was such a great experience in service and coming together. I love that about this program because it brought people together really focused on solving a problem together, and that sense of shared humanity is so obvious at that time. So that one-to-one seeking the value, and then in the larger group seeking a common good together, I think is really important.
Yeah. Now, something I'd like to do to kind of represent how this isolation can feel very hard and lonely on a micro scale, I'd like to do a little activity. So luckily, we don't actually have any rats. So in little groups, maybe this cluster, those back two tables, maybe a row, whatever. Get into groups of 5, 6, 7. I'll explain. You don't have to it doesn't have to be exact. So what I want to do is one person in each group should just shut their eyes and plug their ears and just be away for a minute and a half. Meanwhile, everyone else kind of groups up together, tell some jokes, laugh, tell how's the day been going, whisper to each other. Again, that one person is going to have their eyes closed and ears plugged. And so just someone volunteer.
I think we should say maybe the people on the furthest side is probably easy. Everyone on the end of each row, they could be the.
Yeah.
It's gonna feel weird.
Right, it's gonna feel weird, and that's the point. So go ahead, minute and a half.
If I close my eyes, I'm gonna go to sleep. Okay. So close my eyes, close my ears. Got it.
Or for some people, do an owl.
Oh no.
Exactly. It's so funny.
How y'all doing?
I think on this too.
Yeah, I just ran in front of the camera. Why did the sugar cost $1?
Alright.
How does the cat like its steak?
How does a cat like its steak?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know, it's only what's all I remember.
How many more do we have?
Yeah, what else we got?
That's kind of That's all.
What is the DJ name this time? Eric.
You don't get it?
Okay.
Anybody else?
If everyone, can we just come back into the room?
Okay, this is worse.
Everyone? Pat, you feel free to, that worked well. Tap the person on the shoulder if they still have their eyes closed and ears closed. Just tap them on the shoulder and be like, hey, come back. Okay, now that was probably a really weird little experiment. So for the people, for my volunteers, can you tell me about what that experience was like, you know, being kind of isolated from other people? Just anyone.
You felt like you were really missing out, like, because you could kind of hear all this loud noise in the background and laughing, and you know, and you just felt like, oh, what am I missing out on?
Yeah, so kind of like a FOMO.
Yes,
Yeah.
for sure.
I feel like sometimes when like I happen to be in a room and I'm not conversing, I can still hear like bits and pieces of other individual conversations. Like I can still hear a conversation, but when I was closing my ears, it just was just muffled noise, and it just was another layer of like distance. I'm like, it's almost like a audio book that's like on like 5% volume. I don't know what's going on.
Right. Any other perspective? Yeah.
And then it seems like a really long time when you're not engaging.
Right, yeah. It felt like a long time, right? So essentially this kind of mini experiment is an exercise that I have thought of, like, that shows even if you're in the same room as other people and they're chattering and everything, not being part of the conversation and included can feel very isolating. So this comes from an actual experiment done on rats. The long story short is they found that rats, when they were in a cage by themselves, they had 2 jugs of water, one regular water, another one laced with drugs. And the rats would always go to the water laced with drugs and then OD and die, like almost all the time. And so they're like, perfect, we figured out addiction, that is it. And then 10 years later, a guy named Bruce Alexander was like, if I was in a cage by myself, I think I would probably do the same thing. So then they created, right? Like if there's nothing else to do.
Might as well OD either.
So he created a rat park. So there was a bunch of activities and many other rats, and same thing with the water jugs. One regular water, another laced with drugs. And they found that almost no rats, pretty much no rats, overdosed and died. And around 25% used it kind of like recreationally. Like but there was no dependency on it. And what the more interesting part about that study was they got rats that were in a cage by themselves, addicted to the water laced with drugs, took them out of that cage, put them into the cage with all the other activities, and within like 2 weeks, their addiction was pretty much gone because of those human connections. And so it really goes to show that, you know, sometimes when we're in these depressive spells or these anxious thoughts or these addictive patterns, it can come from a feeling of isolation, where it's like we're trying to feel a sense of connection and fill a void that we don't have. So yeah, that leads us into the next portion, which is seeking discomfort through relationships.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we've talked about isolation a lot and how it is uncomfortable. Could you guys talk about how that absence of connection pushes us to seek more discomfort in new relationships or discover something new about ourselves?
Yeah. So, I mean, for me, I'm still playing with the idea is like, do we challenge ourselves because we have our connections and we feel like we have that safe net, safety net? Or is it that we feel the lack of connections and so we're trying to do different things and different activities to try to create that sense of connection for ourselves. And recently I've come to the idea of it's like, I think it's both, it both can exist. We challenge ourselves and we have our friends to help push us and do more, and really bring out the best in ourselves. However, that lack of connection can also breed grounds for, post-traumatic stress growth. Yes. That is a thing where people experience, traumatizing events and they can grow from it. Not saying that we should all experience trauma, but just saying that, we can go out and grow from the lack of connections that we have and find ways to create our own communities.
I think that finding ways to create our own communities is something that I really take from that. The absence of connection is something we all feel at different parts of our lives, and especially certain key moments. Many of you guys that are students, that first night before you had your first day of classes, or if you were, doing a Park Scholar retreat prior to starting the year, there was a moment of total loneliness in your dorm room. I still remember it so clearly 25 years later. I stayed up all night listening to a CD, yes, a CD, on repeat because I couldn't sleep. I was so anxious and nervous about what laid ahead. But what I realized at that moment, and at other moments where I was totally nervous and isolated before a big event like that, was the sense that everyone probably was a little nervous. All of those people that had their very first day, the next day they were going to have that common interest in connecting with people. Maybe different willingness to connect, maybe a little more shy or maybe a little more extroverted. But knowing at our core we were all probably feeling that is something I try to remind myself as an adult when I experienced that. I recently, a few years ago, I moved from California after being away for several years, 17 years actually. I moved to a new neighborhood, and at first it was like, gosh, how do you connect with adults? When you're a young person, it's so easy to break through that discomfort, meet friends at parties. But when you're an adult, building those kind of relationships with people who have fully formed lives is pretty intimidating. But I reminded myself, like I did back in college, which was, oh wait, I live in a neighborhood where it's pretty much transplants. We're all feeling nervous. We're all nervous to build these connections, and we don't want to step on people's busy lives. But we got brave. We reached out to each other. We set up book clubs. We set up little fun social events for our kids. And it just is a reminder of no matter what phase in life we're in, there's always going to be a human need to make that connection through it. So, sorry, I've lost my spot. I got so thought. So, how do these supportive relationships on the other side of the equation, when you have those supportive relationships, how does that give you the courage to take risks and step into discomfort to allow you to achieve those things that would be impossible by yourself?
Yeah, I think those supportive relationships, that community, is essential to trying new things and doing hard things. Because like we said, without it, it's so isolating and so lonely. But when you have it, it's like it really gives you the confidence that, hey, even if I fail, I still have these people who are going to back me up no matter what. And I think that's a really, really powerful feeling. One example of this, my fellow Park Scholars know that we had an ambiguity test earlier in the year.
Oh my God.
And,
Don't do that.
yeah, I scored very highly, so I hate ambiguity. And anything where I don't know the answer or I don't see a solution immediately really makes me not happy. And so, but the great thing is I have my Park Scholars and my awesome community and family there to support me and help me find answers and find solutions to problems where I don't see them, which is really cool.
Yeah. For me, it's just like knowing that the world's going to keep going from 5 years from now. What I'm going to have is my relationships. Maybe my job will change. Maybe, I'm not going to be in college anymore. But things change, but those relationships are, they're constant. Or the fact that you have relationships, because those can change as well. And so I kind of have grown up failing a lot. And what I mean by that is like, I put myself out there. I tried to recite poetry in front of like my school. Yeah, I absolutely bombed it. I ran for like class treasurer, bombed that speech. You know what I mean? But like ultimately, the only reason I had the courage to do those things is because I was like, okay, I have my friend group, and everyone's gonna forget about it. Fingers crossed. And then like I could just joke about it with them afterwards. So like again, having those connections, just being like, you know what? If all else fails, I have you guys. So yeah.
And no matter what, they're gonna believe in you and see the best in you and the worst and still be there, you know? They're like, get up there and say the poems.
And now we're here.
Exactly.
Okay.
That's
Alright, so next we're going to start talking a little bit more about how essential discomfort is in our lives. So we have a little activity for us, for you guys. If you could, in a few words, talk about what some of those challenging experiences and that those discomfort experiences taught you. If you could think for a minute, and then if we have any volunteers on what that taught you.
I think I've learned that in order to grow and make like progress in life, you have to go through one of those 3 things to see progress and growth. Like nothing comes without some sort of uncomfort, challenge.
I'd say this too shall pass. It doesn't feel that way forever.
Other lessons?
I think similar to the speech or like the talk last night, I think it's like you don't realize what you're capable of. So I guess the example I'm thinking of is the lack of sleep when you have little kids and or work a lot. Like basically like you can function off I'm not saying that that's the healthiest thing, but like you can function off like very little sleep, even though or and like chaos around you for quite some time, given hormones and everything else. Probably they all adjust, but so I think that's like a good perspective that I guess what's in your grasp, you can reach. I'm not saying that all of those things should be where you are constantly at, because there's probably there's a lot of good data on importance of sleep and other things, but that's not to say you can't do that for some extended amount of time. So
it's never as big of a deal as I make it out to be.
Right.
I think we're really good at catastrophizing, right?
Yeah.
We see how badly things can go, and we don't see how well they could go.
Right.
I think practice helps for sure. So if you try it the first time and it's terrible and you feel really uncomfortable doing it, like public speaking or something like that, but you just kind of force yourself to do it again and keep practicing, it gets easier, and you might even become a poetry reader or something.
Oh no, absolutely. Yeah.
It's a big empathy thing, because to feel the outsider or the loneliness or the uncomfortableness in doing that, even though you get good at it later, and we recognize this in someone else, it's easier to show the empathy and the support because they need that.
Someone talked about catastrophizing is think about this prompt. I can think of so many times where I was in an uncomfortable situation, but I cannot remember a single other time when someone else did something uncomfortable or awkward. And even if I do, I don't I just acknowledge it and I move past it. So it's really easy to get in our own heads and then not realize it doesn't really matter.
The empathy thing I think is pretty home. I think you think about the hardest thing that anybody's had to do is the hardest thing they've ever had to do.
Mm-hmm.
So then if you've gone through the hardest thing you've had to do, you can then relate to that other person.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think off of that, it also helps you build vulnerability. Like an example, like the park program or the stamps program. Like what you were saying, you're so nervous that night before, but then you remember everyone else is so nervous, and then you can see each other in this more vulnerable light almost.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think in my experience, like challenges kind of show you the way. It shows you the path. Like you have to do this hard thing so you can get better, you know. And then it like ingrains in you that doing hard things, going through challenges and uncomfortable situations, like produces a better you in whatever aspect that you want. So it's like an indicator, right away. Instead of running to the easy thing, you could lean into that discomfort.
Yeah.
And I think piggybacking off of that, like trusting in yourself as well, like returning to like the base things that like you can trust yourself to be good at. So like the example I'm thinking of specifically is like when you challenge, when I like go to my boss and I like challenge like a way of thinking or like bring something new, and like that's always like exhilarating and like nerve-wracking and like uncomfortable because you know this person knows more than you or they're more experienced, but then just like trusting in like your own ability to be able to bring that forward.
Right. Yeah. Thank you so much for you know sharing about all these great insights. Again, we can't do this alone. But something, you know, I have done a lot of research into the area of discomfort, and you know, we all go through some of the process of being uncomfortable and doing stuff. But the research really shows that it helps in 4 different ways. It builds our capacity. You know, it can change our identity and like hone in on who we are as people. It can change our perspective and how we view the world. And then it also, the 4th one, very important, is it builds those relationships that we have as well. So I think of it as SIP-er, capacity, identity, perspective, relationship. Yeah. And so that leads me to my next question for you two, is do you think we can live a fulfilling life without discomfort? Why or why not?
I definitely think it would be hard to live a fulfilling life without discomfort. If you're just given everything without having to work for it or without having to see a challenge and then watch yourself like achieve like go past that challenge, you're not going to feel that sense of self-worth that comes with, you know, overcoming that. You see it in books and movies and in, you know, fables over time. Any character who's just given it on a silver platter, they are often the one that struggles in life to find true meaning. So I, as hard as those hard knocks might be, sometimes I think they make it worth it.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think doing hard things gives you a sense of confidence that you can continue to do hard things, and it really, without feeling discomfort, I don't know how we would get to the point of growth and learning to be more empathetic and vulnerable and all those things that we need to, you know, be who we are, have a fulfilled life. So I don't think that it would be possible.
Yeah. And just to piggyback off that real quick, I love my rest, don't get me wrong. Like, I wish there were days where I could just stay in my room, play video games, and just like eat potato chips. Like, you know what I mean? But if I were to be doing that for a whole month, I don't think, like, that would drive me crazy. You know, like doing the same thing over and over again without trying to change or add something new.
Totally agree. So for those times where you can't be sitting and eating chips and playing games, those stressful, busy times, how do you continue to navigate and nurture your relationships during those busy times, like from your college perspective?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question, and honestly, it's something that I'm not great at. I'm not an expert by any means at creating or maintaining relationships, and when I get busy or when I have a challenge, staying connected is something that I struggle with. I tend to isolate and, you know, want to solve my problems on my own. And I know that's not the right thing to do. And so I think the good thing is that I have a supportive community and family that recognizes these tendencies in me and will reach out when they notice that I'm doing these things. And so relying on those relationships that I've built have been really key in those moments.
Yeah. And especially scheduling it in, like, there's some people that I'm like, okay, I know every single week I'm gonna have this meal with you, perfect, amazing. And then there's other ones where I'll see them in passing, I'm like, we haven't seen each other, take out your phone, Google Calendar, we're planning the next time or like, you know, next time we're getting dinner or hanging out. And really being intentional with it. And I have learned that I'd rather turn in an assignment a day late and spend quality time with a friend than completely, ghost a friend or not spend time with a friend and then stress myself out about turning in the assignment 2 minutes before the due date. You know what I mean? So I've learned to just, if there, it doesn't happen often, but if there's assignments where I do have to turn it in late, professors are understanding, and I think they're in the same, or they have been in the same boat where they really want to prioritize their relationships, and most people are kind and good, and so they will, accommodate that. And the world's not going to end if you turn something in a day late because you're hanging out with a friend and spending quality time filling up that personal bucket or helping them. So yeah.
And Lauren, I have the same question for you. How do you manage that with balancing all the responsibilities of being an adult? That seems tough.
Yeah. To the parents in the room, yeah, I think back to my earlier career, coming out of college, and that very high achieving mentality. We wanted to do our very best all the time. And I was working in New York and really burning the candle at both ends, 70-hour weeks, to the point that I made myself sick, honestly. I went to the doctor and I was like, I feel terrible, I'm sick, and they were like, you maybe should have a career change, or rethink what you're doing. I wasn't really spending quality time with my family and friends, I wasn't keeping up with my family. And I did choose, I decided to leave that role, and I also recognized at that time that I needed, for my own health and sanity, to take care of myself, take care of my friends and my family, and not needing to be maybe at the highest of the high achievement, and that's okay. And finding companies to work for that had a healthier work-life balance. The fashion world in New York is not that, so if anyone's thinking about it, I would advise against it. But yeah, learning to, at this point, having kids, a puppy, a busy job, the way I navigate those relationships now, while we don't have as much FaceTime, in-person time together, we have a constant stream of text messages with people that live thousands of miles away. And I know it's not the same as hanging out in person, but some of those text chains are like my lifelines. There are friendships I've made 10 years ago that we talk every single day, and it's very low commitment, but very gratifying. So that's how I tend to do it.
And so we've talked a lot about the connection between human relationships and discomfort. Could you guys try to talk about how they're connected and why they seem so inseparable?
You or me?
I'll go for sure. I think the human relationships that we have, the ones that you nurture and you grow over time, those are the people that are going to also challenge you in life. They're going to know the best of you, and they're going to know the worst of you. And they're going to know, maybe that thing you said wasn't so nice. And they'll call you out on it in a kind and direct way. And sometimes that's uncomfortable. But it's also good to know that you can have those relationships in life where you can give that direct feedback. And you can hear it and know it comes from a place of care. So I think those kind of conversations in my family with all those sisters, we had a lot of that, a lot of discussions and back and forth that I'm so grateful for, because we challenged each other, and then going out into the world and not being afraid to have healthy debate, always from a place of respect, really builds that connection.
Right. Yeah. For me, it's I understand that relationships are inherently messy. There's no getting out of conflict in relationships, or just people have different communication styles, different values, whatever, and it's learning to navigate that. And it's different for each person. So, when you think about 100 different personalities, or even 10, right? 10 different personalities. There's going to be something that clashes eventually. Not everything's going to be, roses and dandelions and rainbows and sunshine. So I think when we have our friendships, it's understanding that we're going to engage in some conflict and learning how to engage with that in a healthy manner. To say, I want to go through this with you, and I want us to get through it on the other side. And so, the same thing as human connections and our relationships have been fundamental since the start of humanity. So has war and conflict, you know what I mean? So it kind of goes hand in hand. You know, you have two groups of people that fight over, you know, their tribes. So I think it's just a very natural thing. Now, the next thing I'd like to ask you is, you know, if relationships are foundational for our lives and discomfort is kind of how they manifest, what does that teach us about living meaningful lives?
Gives me the big question. These are like big, this is a big question. A meaningful life, I feel like you know, when you look back at the life you've lived so far, it's not about like how hard you worked or like how fast you answer emails. Like those metrics don't really matter. It's really about the impact you make of the people around you and the relationships you build. And those relationships that are the deeper ones are the ones like we've talked about where there have been challenges and you've seen each other through those challenges and helped each other through hard times. Those are the ones that give you that sense of meaning because you've grown together through that hardship. And you've grown together through the wonderful moments too, and that's what makes it all worth it. So, question for you all, what is, or actually to you all, what's the hope that the people in this audience take away about the role of relationships and discomfort in their own lives?
I can start because I don't want to follow you.
Okay.
That's the best.
I think for me, my main takeaway is building relationships and putting yourself out there and being vulnerable. Those are really challenging things. But they're challenging for everyone. And no one, I mean, there might be some experts, but most people are not experts in building relationships and meeting with people and talking with people. And so understanding that we all feel that anxiety, we all feel that initial fear of connecting, I think is really important to understand and give ourselves some grace when we try, because that's the most important part, is that we try to do these things. And really, despite that initial anxious feeling, we know how important these relationships are to our growth and our ability to get through the times of discomfort. So I think it's just really important that we continue to try. Yes.
Yeah. For me, a similar train of thought is that there are strangers literally everywhere in the world. There are 8 billion people in the world, and we only know how many, a few hundred, maybe thousands. And so there's strangers that can change our lives. And there also are, every single stranger is also going through something, and they're all probably going through the same thoughts of like, oh my gosh, is this person looking at me? How do I look? What, do I sound correct? Am I walking okay? You know what I mean? So understanding that other people they're human. No matter how professional and how put together they may appear, they're also human. And sharing that humanness with others is important when you learn to grow together and go through discomfort and conflict. And so I would encourage you all to try to befriend the people that you may never come across again, because it just, it goes to the strawberry bonbon effect that we heard earlier, right? Like, you could just make someone's day by chatting to them in line at the grocery store. Or you see something and you just make conversation. And for me, I've had several conversations with random people across the world, where I saw someone picking blueberries once in Europe, and I'm like, what? And so I started a conversation, and now we follow each other on Instagram, and we talk every so often. They introduced me to a German artist, and I was like, whoa, this is so, well, not personally, just song recommendations. But I would have never found out this great German artist that now I love her music if I didn't just say, are you picking blueberries right now? So yeah, I mean, you never know what you can learn from other people. Yeah.
Love that. Well, we now have a little activity. this is for you all, what's one small way that you can lean into connection and discomfort this week? One action. One thing. Oh, sorry.
Okay, I know if you're supposed to talk.
Yes, please, sorry. Not a rhetorical question. Go right ahead.
I was gonna guess there's a lot of contacts I have in my phone for not just like friends, but some are just like acquaintances, group members, whatever. But I feel like if I were just to text them and say, it's been a while, do you want to get in a phone call and chat? The worst they can say is no, or they ghost me, in which case, you know, I'll try someone else.
There you go. Just to add to that, and my husband gets so annoyed with me about it, I have this terrible fear of like just reaching out to someone. Like, which seems so weird because my personality is very extroverted, but when it comes to that, it's something I've had to work on, and I'm always, and we talked about it earlier with the small group of like, not being afraid to just put the message out there. Just send a note, hit send, okay, nothing bad's gonna happen. I don't know what it is about that sometimes. I don't know if it's a fear of rejection or what, but it is a harmless act to do for both sides and probably gonna be received warmly, so.
It will be received
Yes.
warmly.
I'll share, since this week, Friday is Halloween, and for some reason, for many years, I have wanted to dress up as Willy Wonka for Halloween, and I haven't bought the costume yet, I just keep putting it off, but perhaps I will buy it and wear it to work. I don't know, I just really have always wanted to do that.
Just remember all of us cheering for you.
And the hair and the hat and the cane and do the roll and
Yes. You're gonna meet another really long on Friday.
Off of one of the talks from earlier, write a note to someone that means something to you. Maybe a professor, like thank you for, this help in advising, something like that. Putting that reach out in physical note form.
So I work at a tech company as well, actually, I work at someone. And I think this is interesting, since the pandemic, a lot of jobs in various industries, right, but a lot in tech especially, it's all moved digitally, right? So virtually, digitally, and so the connection that you build with your coworkers, you really have to work for it, and you have to be really intentional about it. It's really hard sometimes. It's like this discomfort. I feel the same, like when you were talking, I was like, identify, right? It's just like send the message, just like, hey, can we have 15 minutes to just catch up, right? It's another meeting on people's calendars. You kind of feel bad putting that, but building those connection points, it's so critical. And it's just something that we really have to like push ourselves to. So this was a good talk. I'm like gonna go put a 15-minute chat on someone's calendar for next week.
Also, one tidbit of advice, don't frame it as a meeting, frame it as a connecting time.
Yes.
Coffee
chat.
Yes,
Exactly. Coffee, we'll just like chat. I just wanna, just to build some connection. Because we used to have that more organically, right? In offices, you could walk in the break room and see someone and kind of have those spontaneous connection points and things. And now, you really have to work for it, and I think we often just really lose sight of that in the focused, outcome-driven, virtual spaces that we are in.
And that was all we had. If you guys have any questions, we'll try to answer. Again, we're not professionals, but we will answer them to the best of our ability. I don't know how much time we have, but.
It's 2:35. I have a question, maybe for you, Lauren. Something I've been thinking about, actually, Craig and I was like whispering to him just about it, but about this discomfort piece of it. So I have young kids, and I think about how to allow them to experience that discomfort when it's so not natural, because we can just so easily fix the thing for someone, or oh, you're upset about that, okay, let me get this for you, or, right, and like, how do we, I don't know, I'm just kind of curious, like, how do you think about that, about teaching and helping people to be okay with the discomfort, when it's not your discomfort you're even tolerating, it's like seeing your kid be in discomfort.
Totally. They say when you have kids, for those of you who are parents, you've heard this, it's like having your own heart living outside your body, and like watching your kid go through rejection or have like a friendship problem, or we used to call it playground diplomacy. We laugh about that phrase because like the playground is rife with there's a lot of drama that can happen, and it's like, oh, I'm so sorry, my kids put sand on your kid, and you know. But realizing that that's actually those moments when kids have those conflicts together, it's how they're learning to communicate. You know, they're learning to work through conflict. And it's hard not to want to step in. And I think in our generation, a lot of times we feel like we need to, or we're bad parents. It's that sense of like being a helicopter parent. But what I try to remind myself is about what is more important, to teach my kid the ability to resolve this on their own and to be resilient in handling this when I'm not there. Maybe it's bad, but I tell my kids a lot, like, I'm not always gonna be right behind you. You can do it. Like, you can handle it. That's the biggest phrase in our house is, you can handle it. And they're like,
We use suck it up a lot.
yeah.
Maybe I should try yours.
I actually use you can handle it on my husband. He was like, no one's ever said that to me. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna make you a t-shirt.
We do a lot of, that's just part of it. Like,
Yeah.
there's someone like, it's part of it. Like,
For my I don't know if there's any education majors in here, but something that they teach us is like, don't say that, oh, you're smart, because then it like ties their value to being smart. Instead if you say like, you can do hard things, then it's like, oh, I can become resilient, and as long as I keep trying, you know. So, but yeah, it's hard. Just let them fail.
Yeah.
We almost have institutions set up in a way that failure is quite detrimental at young ages, and so like, but like failure is the way you grow, right?
Oh,
so,
yeah.
I feel like in some ways we're fighting ourselves a lot, maybe not only on a personal level, but on like a societal level. Like, okay, we want kids to fail and learn, but we don't let them.
Yes.
So how do we like do that? How do we fix those kind of more societally entrenched situations? Yeah, it's interesting.
I'm really inspired by that question because personally, I was a kid that was terrified, as many Park scholars or staff scholars probably were, of getting a B. The thought of getting a B, honestly, was very terrifying as I was growing up. Big whoops. I got an F in Advanced Algebra 2, my 10th grade year. Yes. Am I the only Park scholar that got an F?
I got that.
Did you?
I did.
Oh.
Yeah.
So I remember before that thinking, if I don't get straight A's, I'm gonna die. Like, not literally, but like, it was just like, I don't know what I'm gonna do if I'm not perfect. And the thought of that failure was so crippling for so many years. And the year that I got that F, Mr. Lapp, I'll still remember. I was stretched too thin doing musical theater with Raleigh. I was thinking I could extend a little too far, but I really shouldn't have. I learned so much about myself. I picked myself up that next semester and I worked extra hard, but the difference was I wasn't terrified anymore. And I knew that even though I had this on my record, I was not destroyed as a person. I still had worth. And you know, when you're 14, I guess 15 years old, there are things that feel very absolute. And at that time, that felt like it was gonna be like a death sentence. I know it seems dramatic, but at the time, you know, it felt that way. I'm so grateful I had that chance to make that mistake, because then moving forward, I was less afraid of that kind of failure. And my son's kicked off 7th grade this year, and his first 2 grades on his math quizzes were F's. And my husband was very freaked out, and I was like, just wait, this is a moment where he's gonna get through it, we're gonna show him, he'd gotten straight A's the year before, so I was like, this is like destiny. I know I have to help him through it. My husband didn't freak out, and my son didn't even know what to do. he hadn't really pictured what it's like to fail yet. And that moment was such a great way for him to realize, this happened to me, but I have parents, I have friends who are good at this topic, they're gonna help me through. And he's got an 86 now, he's working really hard, but he didn't have the guilt that came with it. And so helping our kids feel like you can screw up and know that like, if hopefully there will be supports to help you through it. And if you're a student, recognizing other friends might be struggling and being able to help them through that time too. Sorry, you hit it personal. That was deep for me.
That's great.
I think the other thing you mentioned there is like the lots of activities. And I see almost like a competition emerging, or maybe it's been emerging for many years, like over scheduling children for all kinds of things, and it's almost like you're like all trying to do that, and like every minute of every day is scheduled. I've been watching a lot of Pooh recently. Winnie the Pooh. Sorry. Reading a lot of Winnie the Pooh too. Like what is, I think Pooh or Christopher Robin said, like sometimes doing nothing leads to the very best of something. Like where's that for kids? Where do they get to experience that? I don't know, and I'm scared about it. And even I find myself, both of these things I've asked, I'm like, I do this with my child, and I'm like, how do I stop that? How do I put that? But it's a constant struggle.
Yeah. I feel like I might, as a parent, maybe I'm too, because I was so like, it's gotta go on my college resume. I was very focused on my college resume. I was making 4-year plans, Post-its, so it's gotta be this. And I think about that. My friends all laugh now. My son doesn't have that natural instinct, and so I'm like, I don't want to push. I want him to help. I want to help him be successful, but that's not who he is. He's not that type A, super regimented person. So the way I encourage him, it actually comes back to relationships. Is I say, what are your friends doing? Like who is doing some activities that look interesting to you? And he's like, well, this friend does drama club, and this friend does Battle of the Books. And I'm like, you should join those things. You could hang out with your friends and like connect with people. And so he doesn't know what I'm doing. I'm secretly like pushing him towards these like activities that I know are gonna help him grow, but he thinks I'm pushing it towards him to just like have some quality time with your friends. And maybe I should be pushing him harder to do more extracurriculars, but he is a happy kid with an active mind, with a sparkling kind of curiosity. And I'm happy to let him have downtime because he's sitting there coming up with so many ideas that if I was like, okay, now you have this and now you have this, he does have those activities, but I don't put him through that tight regimen, even though I know that is like the current thing to do. Not that I have all the answers.
Any other thread on the cultural piece maybe? I don't know if there's a question in here or not, but one of the things that I see more and more of is intolerance for failure in the business world, right? Where it's like you're trying to encourage people to take risks, but then they get written off the first time they screw something up, right? And one thing that you see is the importance of having that network of people who still have your back, who will advocate for you and make sure that you get those second and third shots.
Yeah.
I think that maybe that's how you fix the cultural piece, but that does seem to be a shifting target that makes it harder for people to fail.
I mean, call me crazy, but you know, our education system does need to change. And I think something that should be part of it is, you know, teaching healthier mindsets. So, you know, instead of, I just lost my train of thought. Oh my gosh. Just can you say some words that? What you were saying.
How do you support people who are, you know, in a world where failure is less tolerable, right?
Oh.
And you don't.
Yes. Sorry. Yeah. So I think, you know, like teaching the mindset of like, we're not going to get it perfect, and it's always growing. Khan Academy, like Sal Khan, the person who founded it, he did a great presentation. I think it was a TED Talk about like, you know, if you're not, you know, the whole point of like mastery-based learning is like you learn as much as you can, like up to that 100%. If you get like 85, that's 15% that's missing, right? That you don't know. And while, you know, helpful to visualize, right, it's not very encouraging to continuously try and learn. And so I think, you know, if we teach this mindset of like, you know, you're not gonna always have all the answers, but if you keep growing, seeing how things are connected, then like it leads to a more holistic education, right? Because hundreds of years ago, science and philosophy were the same thing. We would never, you know, God forbid we put those in the same, you know, class taught by the same teacher, but like they were the same thing. And so it's like reframing our mindset of how we engage with the discomfort of learning new things and failing. Many students are like, okay, what do I need to do to get an A?
Mm-hmm.
And like I've seen it in my classes where professors are like, I don't care how you do it. This is the end goal. You take the creative liberty to yourself. But students are like, they're so, because they've been punished before. And so, you know, just trying to encourage like self-thought and you know, integration of other stuff.
And I think, Stephen, to your point, I think it's important for us to realize in the business world of looking for those people who are gonna back you up even when you mess up, but then also making sure that you're that person for the people that you work with. So that when somebody, like creating that space, whether it's people that report to you or people that you work with or whatever, to create that safe space for failure, because that's the only way to grow.
It's hard to change that culture though in some large corporate environment. Sometimes it's just really baked in, and it's like seeking out companies that have a particular perspective around that kind of resilience and growth. I think is the only way sometimes, because there are going to just be those places that are like, I hate to say that.
Okay.
It's sad.
Yeah.
I experience them very often.
But it can start with you. It can start with
Yeah.
you. And like your little cohort of people. I think that's the time we have, if I'm not mistaken. Okay.